Hello all, and welcome to another episode of the Forgotten Gold podcast, where I interview people I've met just through saying hi to prove that the most interesting people, well, they're all around us. In episode 4 of the Forgotten Gold podcast, I interviewed Dior Sheen. Our paths crossed in WA, leading to a fascinating conversation about her life on a Tongan island, her thrilling sailing adventures, and the extraordinary experiences swimming and photographing whales. We also delve into the challenges and joys of documenting life through a camera lens for her YouTube channel. Intrigued by her stories, I invited her to share them on the podcast. So join us in episode 4. In the Dunsborough pub, which is probably the strangest pub I've ever played a gig in. And now we're here having this conversation. I'd like to start. The other day we took some photos. Then you were showing me them, and on your lock screen for your computer, was you literally getting attacked by a whale.
I was kidding.
Can we please talk about that?
Whale, yes.
Why were you swimming with a whale? Why was it about to swallow you?
Okay.
Let's just start there.
In a nutshell, my job in Tonga, so I grew up mostly in Tonga for like the last, it'll be 16 years this year.
Yep.
My family runs a whale swimming charter business, so we take people swimming with whales, and I've kind of recently stepped into the role of like actually guiding people, so taking them in the water, showing them the whales and everything. And that picture was taken last year it was almost our last charter of the year, and we had a very inquisitive calf. She came up and had actually like knocked my fins a few times, and I had my big camera with me luckily, and she just came up like underneath me, fully opened her mouth, and like I just swam backwards, and she wasn't trying to eat me, she's obviously whales don't eat humans, they eat krill, but like she was just trying to play and like show off.
And your body was just in the way.
Yeah, and I just took these photos of like my legs with this whale's mouth like open underneath me.
What are like the main dangers of swimming with whales?
Whales aren't dangerous at all. Like they're the most gentle giants you'll ever encounter. But because they're so giant, like they're just enormous. Like if they run into you, that's 30 tons. Like an adult whale is 30 tons. Like a calf is heavier than a car. That running into you is gonna break some bones.
And how many whales are you swimming with at a time when you take people on these tours?
Depends. We usually swim with, I don't know, let's say 2 to 10 at a time.
Yeah.
And then sometimes you'll swim 5 times in the day. So sometimes you'll see like 50 whales in one day. Sometimes you'll only see one. They're wild animals. It's like going out into savannah and going, oh, how many elephants do you see every day? It's like sometimes you'll see none, sometimes you'll see a whole herd of hundreds. It's like,
wow.
Relative
Now,
to
a word from biology class has reoccurred into my head, symbiosis. Right, so you've got the whales, and they may not be dangerous, but the animals that maybe follow the whales for their food and stuff like that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, so the whales come to Tonga to mate and give birth. So they're giving birth to their babies, and that means usually a lot of sharks around when they're giving birth because there's blood and placenta, which we've never actually seen. No one has ever filmed or witnessed a whale giving birth.
What?
Yeah. It's like this huge thing. BBC's on the hunt. They're like, if anyone can find us footage or get us footage.
Do we not know how a whale gives birth?
Well, we know how, but no one's ever seen it.
What about a whale in captivity? Or is that not really a thing?
There's not, like, humpbacks in captivity.
Yeah, of course. It's kind of hard to have a humpback in captivity.
Yeah, they're migratory animals.
So when people pay to go on these whale watching experiences, do you sort of tell them, hey, there is a danger with it? Like, there are sharks swimming around here.
Yeah, it's just not that much of a problem, though. I mean, like, obviously, when you're going in the ocean, there's dangers because you're going in the ocean. Like, there's always something that could potentially hurt you. But we don't get many sharks in Tonga because of fishing. But also, like, they're actually pretty scared of whales. Whales, like, can beat them up pretty bad. Like, I've seen a calf get eaten by sharks, actually, a few years ago, which was pretty intense. That's the only time we've actually felt endangered while in the water with whales. But that was, like, a sick calf, and there was sharks all around, and, like, the whales were fully attacking the sharks, like, slashing them with their fins and stuff.
What breeds of sharks are we talking?
There was bull sharks, tiger sharks, silver tips, oceanic white tips, Galapagos sharks, bronze whalers, silkies, like so many, like, and then all the, like, regular reef sharks. There was probably like 10 different species, all just hanging.
Were you in the
around.
water at this time?
Yeah, well, like, we initially thought it was just like a normal day's swim with like a mum calf and escort, which is like the protective male.
Yeah.
And then we realised that, like, when 8 bull sharks came up at us, we were like, oh, this is not normal.
Were you doing a tour at the time as well?
Yeah, we had all our guests and we were like, we called the boat over. We were like, okay, we need to get out of the water right now. And then me and my mum and, like, a couple of other friends got in, and we were pretty safe about it. Like, we'd do, like, the whole link arms back to back. Had something in our hands to, like, distance ourselves from sharks.
Okay,
but they didn't come anywhere near us.
So there is a protocol that you sort of, like a safety protocol that you follow when sharks are around.
Yeah, but we've never had to, like, that's the only time with guests that we've ever been threatened.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's
in
pretty
15
awesome.
years.
So if someone was to go, all right, I want to go on one of your whale watching tours, what do you take them through to go?
It's actually really hard. We're, like, fully booked for the next 2 or 3 years.
Wow.
We get a lot of repeat customers.
Yeah.
But we pretty much all word of mouth. We're pretty much the only business in Tonga that does liveaboard charters.
Yeah.
So there's one other company that does, like, liveaboards, but they're a bit different kind of vibe to us. And they're in a different island group. So we have a website, we have, like, socials, obviously.
Yeah.
And people just kind of, like, inquire about certain trips. So we'll have set trips already that people can book onto. And you can either book the entire boat, like, exclusively, or you can book a cabin, or you can book, like, several cabins, whatever. And then depends on, like, how many days you want to go. So it's anywhere between 6 to 12 days.
My goodness.
But it's, like, we have, like, a very complex screening kind of, like, program with the bookings, because we don't want just, like, people that, you know, want their hair dryers and their, like, 5-star meals and their, like, frothy coffees and stuff, because we can't offer that.
Can't offer frothy coffees?
No.
Oh, I wouldn't want to do it.
No.
All right.
But who needs coffee when you got whales?
I feel like the adrenaline of
honestly
rail
it
should
is.
give you a
I've
better
done it,
caffeine
like,
burst.
every day for the past 15 years and I'm not bored. I'm still like, oh my God, yes.
But do you still have coffee?
Yes.
See, everyone still needs a coffee. All right, well, let's touch on life in Tonga. What is it like? So you're living on an island in Tonga. There are many islands that I actually don't know much.
There's like 170 something. Depends, because the tsunami recently wiped out a few.
Yeah, can we touch on that?
Yeah. So, 2015, a submarine volcano formed an island, or like a landmass between two pre-existing islands. So then it was the newest landmass on Earth.
Yeah.
And that was 37 miles from our house. So, like, I think technically we are the closest house in the world to that volcano. And then in 2022, like, beginning of, it blew up, like, again, but, like, big time, blew up. Like,
Were you there when this happened?
no, we'd just left. So we had just sailed. It was January 2022. So we had just left, like, just before Christmas.
Yeah.
And we sailed to New Zealand literally 3 weeks before it happened, which is lucky because we probably all would be dead.
Okay, so there's not really like a great amount of warning that comes with it. Like, hey, this volcano is going to erupt in 2 days. It's just like...
No, it
straight
was
up.
showing signs of activity, like it was smoking and there was lava and stuff. But, I mean, it's really hard to predict those things, especially if they're not monitoring them. But yeah, it kind of just like started really erupting, and then it like fully blew up, like big time. It was, I think it's the largest volcanic eruption ever recorded, like via satellite and like video.
So how did this affect where you were?
So it sent a massive wave, which the first wave was the sonic boom, like the sonic wave. So it was the sound wave that actually created this like surge, and it hit our island, which is 37 miles away, at 23 meters high. So we're lucky that the village faces the exact direction that the volcano is, but there's a barrier island. So it washed over the island and kind of like just surged into the village, and it destroyed, I think, about 40 homes, which is about, I don't know, 2/3 of the village. So
Was everyone okay on the...
Surprisingly, only one person died from the island. She was a paraplegic.
Yeah.
So her carer got washed away, and she couldn't move, obviously.
Yeah.
And then, so on the other side, we got a 23-meter wave through our house because we're not protected. And we had a Tongan family living there. And it was just lucky that they had enough time. I think they had about 6 minutes from when the volcano went fully boom, like so loud that you were like, the pressure in your head was like insane. Like my friend like was on the beach when it went off, and he fell over because of the sound. Like it knocked him flat on the ground. And then, yeah, so all of our Tongan family that were looking after our house was actually like having a birthday party at the house, and all the kids were in the water swimming. And our employee, Sam, like called everyone and told them to start running because he was like, oh, there's going to be a massive wave.
Yeah, and just get to higher ground.
And yeah, everyone just started running. And they all ran up. Luckily, it's only like a couple hundred meters into the bush, probably like a kilometre, and they're like at the biggest hill on the island, which isn't very big. It's probably like 40 meters elevation above the sea. But it was just enough like land between them so they didn't get...
So basically the whole island ran up this hill?
Yeah, pretty much.
And how many people are on the island?
Before the volcano, I think there was about 250.
Yeah.
So not many people. And now, because they lost all their homes, they were like forced to evacuate and live on the mainland.
Yeah.
So there's probably only like 70 to 100 people there.
So how is recovery going?
Shocking.
Okay.
So they hadn't had COVID yet.
Yeah.
And this was like a third of the way through 2022. So obviously they were quite behind the world in that.
20. Yeah.
So a lot of the support vessels that came from, I think it was Japan, China, Australia and New Zealand, sent support vessels up there immediately with water because everything had been covered in ash. Like everything. All their water was contaminated. They didn't have any food, especially the outer islands. So they sent up the Navy with water and everything, but obviously they all had, like, COVID. So, of course, they arrived and all the ships were in quarantine because they all had COVID. And then it, like, got out into the country and It actually was fine because most people are vaccinated in Tonga.
Yeah.
So, not that I'm saying that that's what saved everyone, but, you know, I think we were lucky in that sense. But, yeah, so there was like a massive... They've just been destroyed by this tsunami. Now everyone's got COVID and it's running rampant and they're in lockdowns.
Wow.
And then outer islands were kind of like the last places to get help. And then we unfortunately, our friends, because they were living at our house when it happened, they didn't get any support because they said, oh, it's not your house that you lost. Even though they didn't have a house because it had burnt down the year before, and that's where they were keeping all of our stuff, in our house. So they're like, oh, well, we did lose everything. And they were like, no, you were living in, like, the Palangi's house, which is, like, white person.
Yeah.
Because we're the only white people on the island. They were like, yeah, it wasn't your house, so we're not going to support you. So there was a lot of that. I think that was really hard for people.
Yeah.
Like, the government weren't very good at, like, handing out things fairly, which was, it was just hard to see. It was hard to see because it was like everyone wanted to donate money and clothes and food and all this stuff, and it was like, is it actually going to get there?
Yeah.
I don't know.
So 2 years later now, do they still need help? Like,
They're only just starting to rebuild the houses.
Okay, so it's
So
all...
18 months after the volcano was the first time we went back and saw everything and saw what was our home and everything. So, because we were away, like, they didn't open their borders, obviously, because they had COVID and everything. So we couldn't really get back. And then I was studying and traveling and doing all this other stuff. And then finally we went back and saw it all. And it was just mind-blowing to, like, go back, and they hadn't done anything on the island. Like, all the building materials were still sitting there from 18 months ago. And we were like, what? Guys, come on.
Wow.
Like, yeah, but that's just island life.
Yeah,
Like,
okay. Just things move a little bit slower.
People are just like,
No one's in a rush
it's
to get
fine,
anywhere.
you know.
So is your house, have you rebuilt your house?
No, so the thing about our house is, like, we're so remote. We're 60 miles from the mainland, which is, like, 6 hours on the ferry or half a day's sail on our boat. And the ferry is once a week. So getting materials there, very slow, takes time.
Yeah.
You can't just, like, if you're missing, you know, some nails, you can't just run down the store and get it. So you have to wait for a whole week or go sail to the mainland and get it yourself. So, like, building the house took us a solid, like, year to get it very well set up. And then it was 8 years until it was, like, fully, really, like, running really nicely. Like, fully off-grid, had all our own, like, solar. We'd built everything by hand, cleared the land. It was just a lot of work. And we'd actually rebuilt it twice because we almost got destroyed in a cyclone 2 years before, like, during the pandemic in 2020. It almost got destroyed, and it was, like, on the edge of falling into the ocean. So we took it down and moved it and, like, rebuilt it in a new position. So that was like, okay, do we really want to rebuild this house for the third time?
Yeah.
No. We were like, I don't know, I was, like, setting off to do my own thing. My parents were kind of over living so isolated away from all the family and then just having to do everything by hand yourself all the time.
So it was almost
And
time
it was
to go.
just
It's
like-
time to move on.
Yeah, and we were feeling a little bit unwelcome by some of the people on the island as well. Like, we were struggling with that, like, the cultural differences sometimes.
Yeah.
And a lot of them are really good friends of ours. We love them. But it's just, like, sometimes just dealing with, like, different cultural, like, traditions and everything is really difficult. And I think we were all just a bit over it. And our lease was up on the land, so we're kind of like, that was kind of the time to kind of, like, cut it off.
Yeah, and so you came back to Australia how long ago now?
I've been here 3 months.
3 months. So what are your plans moving forward now?
I hate that question. Everyone keeps asking me.
Yeah.
I don't have any plans. I don't know. I still call Tonga home, and I want to go back there this year or next year.
Yeah.
Keep working. You know, we still have the business. And then I have like other friends, businesses that they're like, come work for us, you know. And I just can't stay away.
Okay.
But I also want to like kind of advance a career in some way. I'm not really sure what yet.
Yeah.
Something along with media and storytelling and whatever, because I love that. But it could be something completely different. I'm going to go out there in the world and kind of, you know.
Yeah. Well, on the topic of media and storytelling, you've got a YouTube channel. It goes fairly well. What inspired you to want to tell your story?
It was actually, so I started it during the pandemic. So I'd been stuck away in America. I was going out with this guy who was like a pretty good videographer and photographer. So I really got into a lot of my videography and photography during that trip because I had nothing else to do really. And I was just like, oh, this is sick. Like I have access to all these cameras and stuff.
Yeah.
And then when I finally got home to Tonga after like 7 weeks of quarantine and isolation, kind of like the whole going off, spending time in the rest of the world made me realize how special like the part of the world that I had was. And I was also like bored as hell because I was on an island and no one could visit, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna do something creative. So I started making videos, and then I met this YouTube channel, Gone with the Winds. They're like a sailing channel. They were stuck there during the pandemic, and they kind of like gave me a little shove. They were like, definitely do it, like you'd be so like good at it, just do it. And like I got a whole bunch of pointers from them, and they kind of boosted me by giving me like shout outs and stuff. And then yeah, I just started like creating all these videos on what we get up to on the island. Like, oh, we're gonna go rescue a horse, or we're gonna go swim with some dolphins, we're gonna make some food or whatever, you know.
Yeah.
And people went crazy for it. I was like, honestly, I didn't expect people to actually care about it that much. But then I've had this following that they're all like messaging me all the time, like,
when's the next video?
yeah, when's the next video? Like, oh, I hope that the dog's okay, like it was sick, and you know, or like, what happened to the horse that you rescued? And they're like really invested into it, and I was like, oh, this is sick, this is so nice. And I didn't get any negative backlash, which I was scared about.
Yeah,
it's the internet, you know. Yeah. People are nasty. But I was like, this is so cool. So then, yeah, I was like, I'm gonna keep doing this.
So it wasn't like always a dream. Oh man, I want to just like post videos on YouTube and stuff. It just kind of happened by.
I don't want to
boredom.
do like the whole influencer kind of thing. I don't want to do that. Like, I like storytelling for a purpose.
Yeah.
I don't really like making it all about me as such.
Yeah.
More about like what I'm up to. I don't know. I just don't like. I don't want to be vain and like just be videoing myself all the time. I don't like the sound of my own voice.
So what goes into making a YouTube video? How do you decide like, hey, this is something that I think people will be interested in, or these are the bits that I'll leave in? And when you're having bad times, do you still pick up the camera and try and capture that?
Yeah, that's what I want to do, is like be raw and like real about things. Like, oh, this is shit sometimes.
Yeah.
Like, living on an island isn't all like sipping cocktails on the beach, you know.
Yeah.
It's like you have to make your own food, you have to, you know. And that's what I wanted to incorporate into the videos, was like, it's not all just like rainbows and sunshine.
Yeah, well, you literally don't have a supermarket there. It's not like you can just get a cocktail from the bottle.
I have to make the dog's food.
Yeah.
By scratch, like from scratch.
Yeah, are you able to live predominantly off the land?
Yeah, I'd say. We like fish and kill our own chickens. We have eggs. Like, we had a massive garden. Basically, the only food we'd like buy is like rice and spices and pasta and whatever.
How often you do like one big shop over in the mainland?
Usually like once a month.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, boy.
Or like once every fortnight. Depends. If we got like people staying, we'd do once a week. But, yeah. When it was just us, we're like more than happy to just eat local root veg and fish and veggies.
It's not the worst diet, is
No,
it?
it's great. I love it. I miss it.
You miss it. You used
It's
to kind
so
of go out
pure.
there and get
like, you
fish.
don't have any of this preservative stuff and like, ugh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you still fish much here?
Yeah, I went out yesterday. I went out 3 days in a row, actually.
Get anything?
Yeah. We got herring, crayfish, and abalone.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Boy.
Yeah.
So you basically can live off the land here as well.
Yeah, except for it's really cold.
It is cold.
It's way too cold.
Warmth,
Yeah.
warm water in Tonga, a lot warmer.
Yes,
Temperatures
yeah.
warm all year round.
The
Pretty
water
much.
in winter gets, like, the coldest is probably, like, 20 degrees.
Oh, that's a lot nicer than WA. I can't
That's
believe
the
how cold it is
coldest
here.
it will ever get.
Okay.
It's usually about 23, 24 in winter.
Yeah.
It's like, and then summer's like 26, 27, sometimes 28.
Wow.
It's like,
That's not... Wait, in
it's
the water?
too hot.
Yeah, that is...
It's like you go surfing and you're sweating.
Wow. And there are a lot of breaks on your island?
No.
Okay.
Yes.
No, okay.
I'm not allowed to say.
No comment.
It's secret.
All right, so something that I like to touch on this podcast is most of the time I'm interviewing people that are living out of their vans that I meet in car parks and stuff. So you are a bit different. But what we touch on a lot is the fine line between freedom and loneliness.
Right.
You know, you're on an island by yourself with your family, not away from your friends, and you have this freedom that people don't have. But do you find there is this fine line between freedom and loneliness, and you miss the easiness that home provides sometimes? And how do you cope with that?
It's hard because I never really knew an alternative life. Like, when I was 2 weeks old, I moved onto the boat with my parents.
Okay.
Like, and then we set off as a family, like the four of us, sailing around, like Australia and Solomons. Came back here. Immediately, my parents were like, "No, this is not for us."
Yeah.
And then that's when we ended up buying a boat in New York and sailing across the Pacific, and that's how we ended up in Tonga. So that's like all I've ever known.
Yeah.
Is like living in isolated, remote places, dealing with what you got, just making the most of it. That's like, it's funny because most people ask, what's it like living? I just don't know any different. Like growing up, I do now, obviously, but like growing up, I just thought that was normal. And then like you become an adult, and you're like, oh wow, that's not normal.
Yeah. Sailing across the Pacific, what does that entail, and what sort of, I suppose, storms and the seas that you're sailing in?
Yeah, I guess, like, I mean, it's pretty adventurous. My dad's grown up sailing, though, so he's, like, he always kept us super safe.
Yeah.
I don't know, it's just one big adventure. It's, like, essentially exactly the same as, like, van life, but you're on the ocean. Like, you have everything you need with you.
Yeah.
It is your home, but you're just on the ocean. And it's, like, I don't know.
When there are storms and big waves and you're in the middle of nowhere. Like,
Well, you usually predict those things. Like, you'll have, like, weather checks and everything. So you know when a storm's coming so you can get to a safe anchorage and stuff.
okay, so normally that's not a huge problem.
No.
Are there ever any just like, where did that storm come from?
When we were in Solomons once, there's actually a video of it. They were, like, sailing along, and all of a sudden there's, like, 2 tornadoes on the horizon. Like, you can see them, like, just...
Yeah.
And then they merge together to form, like, a giant tornado.
Okay.
And there's, like, video of us, like, tying shit down on the deck, and we're just like, oh, no. And my parents are like, kids, get inside. That was the only time that it was like completely unpredictable, completely out of your control.
Where did you have to race off?
We just went in the opposite direction to the tornado.
You just ran away from the tornado?
Yeah, it was fine because it was moving the other way. But, you know.
It's not very many days we go, yeah, let's go run away from the tornado.
Let's go run away from a tornado.
So you've travelled around Australia, Solomon Islands, to the US. Where did you set off to go from the US?
So I was here.
Okay.
I had just finished school. And I was like, I want to go travelling. And I'd met this guy on charter that we ended up together for like a year and a half, but I went to like be in Canada with him, and then we got stuck because of COVID, so we were in US because that's where he's from. So we're like at his family home, and we ended up just like staying there for like 5 months.
Yeah.
Because I couldn't go home, and I opted not to come back here because I was like, I'll just be stuck in Australian winter. I'd rather be in American summer.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was an insane trip actually. But it was a hectic time because it was like I was 19 and it was pandemic and I was tens of thousands of miles away from anyone I knew.
Yeah.
I was just like, whoa. Yeah.
And then after that, US, you went back to New Zealand and you studied in New Zealand for a little bit?
So I was robbed in Seattle. I had my passport taken. So I had to leave the country. I had to come back to Australia. And then I went through this huge rigmarole of getting back to Tonga, which was really hard because they were only taking a certain amount of people every month, and it was like really hard to get on the flights and everything. And I waited here 4 months and then got back to Tonga. I did a month quarantine when I got back from America here, and then I did 3 weeks when I got to Tonga. So I was like, yeah, quarantined out.
That's good fun.
And then I got back to the island. We stayed on the island for a year and a half.
Yeah.
We didn't have any guests because it was pandemic. But we rebuilt the house because the cyclone had almost destroyed it earlier in the year. And that's when I started my YouTube channel. And then we decided we all needed to get out of there.
Yeah.
So we sailed the boat to New Zealand. And then I decided to study. So that was 2022.
What did you study, by the way?
I studied media.
Okay.
So communications media. So like podcasting, video editing.
Is this a good
All
is this
that sort of
podcast
stuff.
going?
Yeah.
Yeah, let's go. Alright. Sweet. Well, I feel like we're coming to the end of the discussion. I like to finish it always with the reason I started this podcast was because I was like, kept meeting these awesome people. And I was like, I've got to get their stories. And also because, well, I've got a song coming out, which I just uploaded today on Gyro Stream. So that's coming out in a couple of weeks. Mm-hmm. But the song's called Forgotten Gold. Mm-hmm. And so I always finish it with like, what does Forgotten Gold mean to you?
And it's going to have an epic album cover.
Oh yeah, I should mention that. Dior took the photos for the album cover and it looks pretty cool. Pretty awesome. We jumped into, where were we?
Canal Rocks.
Canal Rocks and floated downstream.
Yeah.
And those clothes still aren't dry in the car. I keep hanging them out and they never dry. But it was worth it because the photos are awesome. Now, is that something that you want to pursue in terms of, like, is that something you enjoy doing?
I was actually thinking about that last night. I was like, how cool would it be to, like, actually do that for a living, like, create artists, like, profiles and stuff. Yeah. That'd be so sick. Like, doing band shoots and stuff, like, gigs and everything. I've done a couple and it's really fun.
Yeah.
It's really fun. And I shot completely different, but I shot my cousin's wedding a few months ago. And that was really fun creating, like, it was a huge amount of work. It was like 2 weeks of every day, all day editing. Because I shot and filmed, like, I filmed and edited everything myself. And it was just like, but it's an awesome way to get paid for doing something you love.
Yeah.
Because you can do it anywhere. Like, you just find people and you're like, hey.
So artists in the southwest of WA.
Hit me up.
Hit up Dior. And do you want to give your... actually, what does Forgotten Gold mean to you?
Forgotten Gold.
The phrase itself.
What does it mean to me? I immediately think of like looking back at like massive or even little moments in my life that have shaped who I am. Like little adventures or big adventures or just things that have happened to me or us as a family. And like that's golden moments because it shaped you.
That's a perfect answer. All right, well, we have come to the end of the podcast. Do you want to give your YouTube and stuff at all a shout out?
It's just Dior Sheen. That's it.
That's it. Awesome.
Everything's Dior Sheen.
That's easy.
YouTube, Instagram. That's all I got.